in a row, and they hired him to play 2 nights because he would sell out the club entirely 2 nights in a row. And I remember many times, like at Moe's Alley, which is a good sized place, in Santa Cruz.
Sure, yeah.
They'd have to turn people away at the door, even though we were doing 2 nights there. So right off the bat with Corby, it was really clear that he had a big head of steam and had really captured the attention and admiration of a lot of music fans in the South Bay. So yeah, those 2 clubs in particular, we had some incredible nights in both those places, and frankly, I will never forget them.
Yeah, it sounds phenomenal. I mean, I've never seen the show, the JJ's, and yeah, they're phenomenal. The phenomenal level of energy, from the band and the audience, and it just all came together, and just pretty wild. All right. One thing you have to experience, you can't really describe it. It's just sort of a supernatural kind of vibration almost.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Corby, again, you hear stuff like this, particularly in retrospect when musicians pass away. But so it sounds stereotypical. It sounds like a cliche, but there was something transcendent about Corby on stage, and a lot of that was this incredible contrast, for what you saw compared to the music you were seeing. Like, Corby. One of the things that was always interesting about Corby, really, right up until his passing, is that he always had a really youthful appearance. He always looked much younger than his age. He was 19 when I started playing with him, but he always sort of retained that youthful appearance, and so you'd see this, what looked like a little kid on stage with this big guitar, going through, this, I don't know how to put it, just this almost maniacal, stage performance. And it was hard to put those 2 things together, the amount of energy he was putting out as opposed to the way he looked. He looked like this little kid.
Right.
And his guitar skills were just so advanced, particularly for his age, that it was hard to put together what you were seeing on stage with what you were hearing because of that sort of contrast. And Corby was still playing. Every gig we did, within 2 minutes, his t-shirt would be completely soaked with sweat. He held nothing back and kind of went further than that. He just went completely over the edge, in terms of pouring everything into his music. It was, I'm not sure, I played with a lot of people. I played with a number of famous musicians and a lot of baby bands, a lot of bands trying to make it. I'm not sure I've ever played with a musician. I keep calling him a musician because he was an incredible guitarist, but he actually was an amazing musician, even though he was totally self-taught. But I'm not sure I've played with any performer who would put that much into a single performance. It didn't matter where he was playing. Like I said, even at a rehearsal, he would put 100% into everything he did. It was very impressive.
What kind of guitar did he play? I was watching some of the video clips the other day, and much on the background on the guitar, and
you know what? You're talking to a drummer?
Yeah.
I can tell you what kind of sticks I use, but I know Corby's dad's listening to this right now, so Jim, if you want to give me a quick instant message on that one, I'll let Jake know as soon as I see it on my computer. So,
yeah, and any favorite pedals or I guess other concepts there, related to getting the sound that he got out
You know, he used a number of pedals, you know, but he wasn't one of these guys with an enormous pedal board. You know, I think he used what might be considered today to be a pretty basic pedal setup. You know, so he had a wah-wah pedal and some kind of, you know, fuzz, tone, overdrive type of pedal. But, you know, like so many great guitarists, you know, he really got a lot of sound out of his guitar just with his fingers, just the way he touched the guitar. And, you know, in my mind, that's a sure sign of a great guitarist who doesn't need to rely on all the fancy boxes and technology. You know, he just really had this physical, intimate relationship with his instrument, you know.
Super,
yeah. Which should be true for any, whether you play trombone or flute or whatever it is, you know.
Yeah, can you hang for a few? We'll play a tune and come back in a minute.
Sure, I'm glad to.
Let's do a thing called Do You Know? And we'll come back and we talk with Andy Doerschuk here, who drummed with Corby Yates on the first couple releases and has a good insights on Corby Yates and the guitar playing and such. And we'll be right back after we listen to a tune here.
A plan that holds still.
We've got Andy Doerschuk online with us here, and Andy, you're commenting while the tune was playing that you co-wrote this one with Corby.
It's the only one that I actually co-wrote with Corby and Jim, and it's weird, but one of the things I like about it is how being a drummer, this is supposed to be a bad thing, but it kind of picks up at the end. It speeds up a little bit at the end, and within the context of the song, I think it really works. It really drives the ending home. Although that's supposed to be a big no-no, among drummers, but we all did it together, in the studio. Everything we did in the studio was really very much cut live. We weren't necessarily, only on a couple occasions did we play a song to a click track. Everything was just very organic, like a trio playing in the studio, which, gives you that sort of human feel, to the music.
Yeah, I think that's about the way to really do it if you can do it. There's so much, like you say, it's got the organic feel to it versus something that's got the little, production twists and all that.
Yeah. Which gives it a bit of a retro sound. That's fine with me, I wanted to follow up on something.
Okay, sure.
If you don't mind, you'd mentioned in the very top of the show, you had mentioned sort of a Trower influence,
Yeah.
And I think Corby's, especially the Back from Yesterday period, definitely reflected that. One of the things that I always found remarkable about Corby, particularly at such a young age, is that his music was constantly evolving. When I first started playing with him, he was really kind of one of your, blues prodigy guitarists, doing a lot of Stevie Ray and a lot of blues standards. And I think you hear that more on the first album than you do on anything else he did after that. By the time we got to Back from Yesterday, instead of, just having a handful of original songs and a number of blues covers, it was mostly original songs with just a couple blues covers. And his style of music was really gravitating away from blues. I know that's probably sacrilegious to say that on a blues show. I mean, it still had that fundamental underpinning of the blues, but he listened to a lot of different music. He loved John Coltrane. He loved Queens of the Stone Age. I mean, he really loved Queens of the Stone Age, Blue Cheer, bands that you wouldn't, or artists you wouldn't necessarily consider blues artists, Although all American music derives from the blues, that's very true. But the point is that when you said Robin Trower, it made me think that, he wrote Back from Yesterday, which is very Trower-esque. You're exactly right about that. After we'd done a gig with Robin Trower and opening for Robin Trower, we actually did a bunch of gigs opening for Trower over the years. And I wouldn't say Corby was ripping off Trower, it's just that he was this sponge. He, as I said earlier, he was not a trained musician. I don't believe he could read music. Totally a natural, totally self-trained. And he would just hear something for the first time and integrate some elements of that into his music. And it just makes you wonder, had he not passed away, where would Corby be in 20 years? What would his music sound like,
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Because it was never static. It never stayed the same.
Yeah, that's interesting insights. I guess what were some of the folks you opened for that, sort of was like, something you remember? I know, obviously you mentioned opening for Robin Trower a few times. What were some of the other bands that you guys opened up for that? The band, or yourself and Corby and Jim were like, oh wow, this is a big show. You had it circled on the calendar and we're fired up. And
definitely Trower again, but we opened for John Lee Hooker not that long before he passed away. That was a remarkable show. That was at the Ventura Theater in Ventura, California, and we did a bunch of gigs with Tommy Castro Band. Tons of gigs with them, festivals, but also just opening for them, and they were pals too. They were good friends of ours, and a lot of those are memorable just because we were hanging with our pals backstage, before the gig. And that always seemed to be a good pairing, the bands didn't sound identical, and so the audience got a nice variety. And I gotta say, there were others that we opened for. They're just not springing to mind at the moment, but a lot of our gigs were headlining gigs.
Right.
So we were in small clubs, but I'd say about 95% of the gigs we played were headlining gigs, rather than opening. But they were all memorable for one reason or another. And
oh yeah.
some of them for reasons I can't really say on the air.
There you go. It's all good right there. Well, we'll keep do keep us informed. See some rumblings of folks getting together and putting together a live music show honoring in memory of Corby here in the near future. So we'll stay tuned on that and get that out to the audience as those plans come together. So keep us posted on that.
Will do. Yeah.
I'm sure you'll get a jingle up on that when those get put together. And I think right now everybody's still sort of like reeling and absorbing it and so on. And yep. So like I say, I definitely felt the disturbance in the forest last Tuesday, and then finally found Wednesday, started seeing the post that Corby had passed, and it's tough losing that level of that caliber of performer. It's just say they don't come around every day. They don't come around every year. It's a very special, unique talent there.
Well, he was a supernova. He just burned extremely brightly, and but for a very short period. And I just hope that he knew how many people really loved him. I can only imagine that when he was going through whatever he was going through, that it was hard to to focus on anything else except his difficulties. But those people who followed him, those people who experienced his talent, loved him a lot. And so, yeah, I hope he knew that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for your time today, Andy Doerschuk.
Well, it's good to talk to you, Jake, and thanks again for doing this show. It's just tremendous.
Yeah, we'll stay in touch, and we'll see. Like I said, we'll keep everybody updated. She'll be, so we can have a live music show come up here in the near future, and we'll keep everybody updated on that. All right, I'm gonna play some more Corby now. Gonna go watching the track called "I Don't Mind." Lemons run by.
A circus smile that's running wild. Butterfly zebras are moving as she whispers a fairy tale. Long when I'm sad, she comes to me. A thousand smiles she gives to me free. Said it's alright, it's alright. You can't take anything you want from me. angel come down from heaven yesterday. She stayed with me just long enough for afternoon tea. And she told me a story yesterday about the sweet love between the moon and the deep blue sea. And then she spread her wings high over me. She said, I'll be back tomorrow. And I said, fly on my sweet fly on through the sky. Fly on my sweet. Tomorrow I'm gonna be by your side. Sure enough, the spark came on to me. Silhouette silhouette against the child's sunrise. And my angel, she sent on to me. She said, this is the day for you to ride. Take my hand, you're gonna be my man, we're gonna ride. And she took me high over yonder. And I said, fly on my sweet. Fly on the sky. Fly on my sweet. Tomorrow I'm gonna be by your side.
Rest in peace, Corby Yates. Passed away this past week due to complications from schizophrenia. And but we'll always remember him for all the great music and just the incredible live performances that he delivered. Corby Yates. And right there, Angel, appropriate tune to close that set out with. Of course, it was a Jimi Hendrix tune, and also a Little Wing before that. All right, you dial into KSCU Santa Clara, 103.3 FM. Jakester here, getting ready to roll off to out into the sunshine. Mr. G's on the way in, and we are going to... For all the friends out there in the parking lot up in Mountain View, getting ready for the Further show. Everybody getting ready for the Further show up there in the parking lot in Mountain View at Shoreline. There's a little Further for you.